We're going to start off with our client today, Joseph Forte. In this session, we'll read over the notes that the client has left for us as tutors, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the document, reading over it and giving commentary and feedback as necessary. And I'll show you all different styles and approaches that I use and approaches that you can also implement within your sessions. So for this particular client, their assignment is on the yellow wallpaper, which is a short story, so we know that it's an analysis of a literary work. And so the client's main concerns show up here. Some clients may not give you a lot of information and detail on what they want. Some clients may really want to focus on grammar and structure. And so with that, you'll have to use your better judgment in how you want to approach that session. And so for this client, they'd like to focus on their organization, structure, and grammar, and they're worried about the conclusion. So what we're going to pay attention to is that grammar and structure just simply through our reading of each paragraph. And then at the conclusion, we're going to pay special attention because that's one of the bigger concerns that our client has. Okay, and so the client report form, I like to do my sessions with both of these up. That way I can always check back to it. But for the purposes of this video, and because we know what the client is directly looking for, I'll go ahead and make the actual document bigger on the screen. And so how I approach each of these sessions is I go over to my review, track changes, make sure all markup is set up. That way they see your commentary in a different color, and the changes that you make to the document they also show up in red as well. And I like using my comments as well. So we'll go paragraph by paragraph, reading through it and seeing if we can find any grammar or structural concerns so that we can make note for the client. Okay, so I've gotten to the second paragraph of this essay, and one of my first concerns is actually that I'm missing the thesis for this particular paper. I'm not sure what arguments and claims that the writer is going to make, so I'm actually going to take a look back through that first paragraph just to check and see if there is in fact a thesis. And now that thesis statement, a lot of our clients, sometimes it gets lost within the essay. Sometimes there is no thesis statement. And so the analysis sort of takes off. But we know that in that introduction paragraph, that thesis statement is very important because that's what sets us up for our reading. So I'm going to take a look through the first paragraph again, just to see if I missed that thesis statement. Okay, I'm actually going to highlight some of what I feel like are the beginnings of an argument, but they aren't fully developed within here. So let's see. So there's this talk of deep underlying complexity. Let's see. Increasingly complex, like the pattern. So there's something about patterns and underlying complexity that the author, the writer, our client is looking to talk about, but they're not quite saying what they mean by that. Yeah. Really interested in sort of that coded language. And when I say coded language, I mean the language that a writer sort of embeds within the actual narrative. And so through your analysis, you would sort of start to unpack those things. And I think that that's what the client is intending to talk about, but they're not clearly stating it for us. And so what I like to do here is go into my comments, and then I would just highlight an inner meaning and give a comment on that. Okay, so in my comments, I like to take the approach of being both tutor and teacher within my commentary. And so my comments, I like for them to be on the long side. I like to explain and say my comment or concern, and then also offering sort of one more facet for the client to understand what I'm saying, just in case they're not fully aware of a thesis statement, how it should operate within the paper. I like to just give them a little more of my walk through that comment, which is the same thing that I would do with my face-to-face clients as well. You tell them what you want them to do, and then you explain to them what that means, just in case they aren't aware of that, right? Because a lot of clients come in and their professor may have also given commentary that they simply weren't able to understand or find how they can implement it within their paper. And so definitely within these sessions, within virtual sessions, take the side of adding more detail and explaining more of your comments to your clients, especially because you won't have that opportunity to speak with them through virtual chats if it's a session like this. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to these next few paragraphs. So here, I'm just going to underline this right here, because this seems to be a point of interest for the author, talking about the description of the nursery specifically as a point of argument for the complexity or the pattern making within the story. And so I'm just going to highlight that for now. I'm just going to underline it for now, and then I'll make a bigger comment after I've read through. I'm going to highlight this whole thing, because we know that in MLA formatting and in APA formatting, because this is such a big quote, it's going to require a different kind of formatting, usually indented twice. But for now, just for the purposes of this, and because we don't know what formatting style the client is supposed to use, we're going to go ahead and just put that, and then we'll link them to the Purdue OWL. Yeah, and you can just link them to the page, and they'll be able to go from there, especially since we're not actually sure which formatting that they need.